I can't believe it's been 4 years since I read The Artist's Way and started doing my morning pages. Now, at first I had a lot of resistance to it, even though I had journaled since seventh grade. So in this video, I'm going to share with you my 4 top takeaways after doing morning pages for 4 years. I'm Jackie Elmer. Subscribe to the channel. Follow my playlist on curating a creative life of joy at 50 and beyond. And make sure you grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com. Takeaway number 1 is the power in committing and doing it and working through the resistance and the struggle. And what I found is that even though in The Artist's Way for morning pages, Julia Cameron recommends doing 3 full pages, I started with that, and then I learned to change things up so that they would fit for me. Sometimes I couldn't get through 3 pages, or I thought that I couldn't. So I would set my timer for 5 minutes and just write. Sometimes I would set my timer for 20 minutes. Sometimes I would only write 1 page. So what I found is that I had to be compassionate with myself to learn to work myself into this process. Now, the other thing that I really want to bring home, the point that I want to bring home, is that this is not, morning pages is not journaling. It's not about a diary. It's literally getting up first thing in the morning and having that free flow, unconscious, if you will, writing process to where you've got fragmented sentences. You might have a lot of swear words. You might have thoughts that are just all over the place that don't make sense. For me, the morning pages was kind of getting my attempts at meditation on paper. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that struggled for a long time with thinking I wasn't doing meditating right, because I'd get started and pretty soon I'd start writing my grocery list or thinking about yesterday or thinking about the evening ahead or something like that. And I thought I was a failure. And what I realized was everybody goes through that. It's just the process of catching yourself, being very gentle, and just bringing your mind back to silence and solitude and blankness, if you will. And so for me, when I started doing morning pages, I really realized it's kind of the same concept. That was my opportunity to just let it all flow. It didn't matter if I started out talking about how the day went yesterday or what was going on for this evening, and then I deviated to something that happened 5 years ago. Whatever it was literally just encouraging and allowing my mind to open up and free flow whatever was on it. And I know one of the struggles that so many people come up with is they sit down and they feel like they have writer's block. It's like, what am I going to write about? This is where it's so powerful, though, because the reality of it is you can write, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I'm thinking, I'm thinking. The key is just to keep your pen on the paper and just keep writing something. So for me, I came up with some simple mantras. I'm doing the best that I can today. I'm a very creative person. I know that this process is going to grow me and challenge me and create amazing ideas of productivity for the future. I appreciate myself. I appreciate these times when I feel blocked. Whatever it is, I began to develop this concept that I could write, and through that process, I could even get into like a visualization type thing for stepping into my future self. Who do I want to become? And pretty soon, other thoughts would pop into my head. And so I would just start writing those down. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're finding a struggle, know that the power to committing to it and just doing it and seeing it through to work yourself through the resistance is so worth it. Now, concept or takeaway number 2 that was really powerful for me are the artist dates. In The Artist's Way, one of the things that she recommends are artist dates. And I began to kind of free flow write about that as part of my morning pages process. And it just kind of started coming to mind for me. But that's when I realized, gosh, what am I going to do for artist dates? I'm not a sculptor, a painter, a writer, an artist in the traditional sense. But that's when I really allowed my joy of going to consignment stores and estate sales and thrift stores, the botanical gardens, museums, all that type of stuff. That's where I allowed that to come in and become my artist dates, and especially consignment and thrift stores. I don't have to buy a darn thing, but I get so many ideas from that. Such creative energy flows from me, even if it's just the creativity of visualizing in my mind what I would do if my home were completely different, if I were furnishing and decorating an Airbnb or a rental property or something like that. How would I do things differently? I had the opportunity a few years back when we lived out in Southern California. We lived in Lake Arrowhead and we bought a beach place in Ventura. And my Lake Arrowhead home was very rustic and southwesterny, still much like my home today in Scottsdale is. But it was so fun decorating that beach home and making everything light and airy and seashells and all of the stuff that encompass the beach. And so that was kind of like its own little art estate. Now, that was way before I was familiar with the Artist's Way or morning pages or any of that. But I realized just how powerful it is to have that experience of going out, going to consignment stores and estate sales and vintage shops and antiques and all that kind of stuff, and just looking and thinking, I really love that bread box. It would never fit in my home today, but how can I have some fun in my mind for these few minutes of decorating a different kitchen? And then I mentioned museums. That's become a big thing for me. One of the things that I'm doing, because I also love to travel and I use those as art estates, I have set a goal to hit all the presidential museums here in the United States. And so that's been a lot of fun. And those are like art estates for me. I love history. I love learning. And so it's just been something fun that I can plot on my calendar and begin to look forward to. And then takeaway number 3 is the alternative lives. One of the things that she has you do, several weeks building on it, is if you could go back in time and do things differently, what would be some of the lives that you would lead, the career paths that you would take? And that's where my inner Rachel Ray, being a celebrity chef on the Food Network, which at this point in my life is probably not going to happen, but that launched my Kitchen Confidential playlist and my lives that I do here on this channel on YouTube almost weekly, unless I'm traveling. So I love that. It's like, I always wanted to be a chef. And by getting creative through my morning pages and through the Artist's Way and thinking about those alternative lives, that really has been a key thing for me. So my inner chef, my inner Rachel Ray, to become a YouTuber, right? I want to be able to go and say, I'm a YouTuber. Even though I've been on YouTube for years, more from the business sense, I have a whole nother channel that's business topics. As I've aged and come to find new passions and purpose in my life, I am more drawn toward life skills and kind of looking back at these other generations and lifting a hand down to pull people up and help them strive and thrive and be more successful. And then I always thought it would be so fun to be a travel blogger or a tour guide. And so a few years ago, I launched the Travel Life by a Pilot Wife YouTube channel. And then I have my Pilot Wife podcast because I've been part of the aviation community for decades and I love to travel. And I thought, well, okay, I may not ever be a travel blogger. Honestly, if I could do anything, it would have been to do something like Anthony Bourdain with all of his travels that he did. And Parts Unknown, I think, was the name of the series. I loved that. And I loved cooking. And I loved how he combined all of that. So that's kind of what I'm doing with all of this, is going out to cities, and whether I'm on business or what I'm doing, really taking those moments to go find the vintage thrift store, the antique store, or the fun coffee shop, which I just recently did here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Onyx Coffee Labs, which is a world renowned. It was on how I built this podcast. So it's really just looking around and taking advantage of those opportunities that life puts in front of us. And then my 4th and final takeaway from the Artist's Way and the morning pages is redefining creativity. Now, I've shared before that in 7th grade, my 7th grade art teacher literally broke my little creative heart when she asked me if an art project that I was so proud of had been done by me or my brother, who's 2 years older and quite artistic. And I was devastated. And clearly, all these decades later, I've never quite let that go. And I made up that story in my mind that said, I am not a creative person. I am not a creative person. And then years later, I had made a fantastic picnic lunch for a friend of mine. We were going to some kind of a seminar up in Sedona or Cottonwood or somewhere in Arizona. I don't even remember that, but I remember driving, and she's very creative, very artistic with silver and stained glass and jewelry and mosaics and all kinds of beautiful artsy stuff. And we were talking about my feeling that lack of creativity. And she said to me, I want you to stop saying that. Look how creative you are. Look at this fabulous picnic lunch with china and silverware and linens and everything that I had put together. She was like, you are extremely creative. It's just not drawing or painting or sculpting or some of that stuff, but you're a brilliant cook and, really into the artsy, the experience of setting a table. And if you know me, you know that I don't like to eat off of paper plates or with plastic cutlery. I like to use the real thing. And so it doesn't matter if it's cheap or whatever. I love to go thrifting and consignment stores, and I buy cheap I buy expensive china plates for $1 a piece, and then I don't care if they get broken. And they're mismatched and they're eclectic, and I love that. So the fourth and really final takeaway from the Artist's Way and doing the morning pages is really redefining creativity. I'm really here to help others, along with myself, curate that creative life at any age. So will you try it? Will you read The Artist's Way? Will you commit to the morning pages, even just for 30 minutes? Drop your answer below, subscribe, watch this next video coming up on the morning pages, and grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com.